Good morning. About 300 years ago or so, I wasn't a history major, but I'm guessing, there was a group of guys called Musketeers, and they were very loyal to country and to the disciplines and the values and beliefs. Well, you know, it's a little known fact. The Musketeers were not soldiers, not just the sort of guardians or even the police officers of France. They were actually a medical group. And not anybody said a peep like you believe that entire line right there. That was great. That was great. And one thing that you might not know about them is they actually invented dialysis. More laughter. Still some people up in the back wondering, is he telling the truth or not? And they found an ideal patient, a patient that was a candidate to have this incredible treatment when kidneys fail, to be hooked up to some apparatus that literally cleanses the toxins out of one's body and keeps one alive and with one's family. They found this ideal patient. They took this patient and presented him to King Louis and said, we want to show you this wonderful treatment that we have. And King Louis said, no, I'll have to start a Medicare program. People will be debating how to treat people over and over and over and over again. And this whole healthcare thing will go on forever. Imagine. And so he banned this patient to the bowels of the Bastille, locked him up in prison. And this patient became known as the patient in the iron mask. And what happened was this patient was sent to the Bastille, but these musketeers who believed so persevered, and they went down to rescue him. And when they went down to rescue him, they were trapped. They were trapped, had no way out. King Louis, guarded by other musketeers, they were trapped, could not get out. And right before they were about to figure out what to do, D'Artagnan revealed to the group that the patient in the iron mask was actually his long-lost son. This is when you all go, ooh, okay. And through the magic of technology, I actually have some actual footage of this event. So this is the scene where the musketeers are trapped, the inventors of dialysis, with the patient in the iron mask. Please enjoy.
Forgive me to Louis for all your lies.
Now, I must admit, some of you don't believe that was, and that King Louis looked a lot like DiCaprio, but you have to understand, there's a mistake. There's one mistake in that miraculously recovered film of all that live action in living color, high definition. There's a scene in it that I need to correct. So I want you to take a look at that scene for me, please. What D'Artagnan said was not, if we must die. He said, if we must dialyze, if we must dialyze, let it be like this. One for all and all for one. So now that we're all teared up and emotionally charged by this experience, what you have just experienced with me, and my story begins this way. This is actually part of the graduation of what we call our 2-day DaVita Academies, where we get 300 to 400 to 500 of the hardest working human beings in healthcare together for 2 days. If you don't know much about dialysis, everyone that works in healthcare is a special human being. Everyone that works in dialysis is an even more special subset of healthcare. And I serve them, as do a bunch of us, because what they do every other day is some of the hardest work in the world. Every other day, a human being comes in with their body full of toxins, not feeling good at all, feeling really bad, bloated, lethargic, grumpy, and they have this miraculous 4 to 5 hour experience where they're hooked up to a machine and their blood is cleaned and filtered and they leave. Many go back to their families, many go back to work, many go back to their skilled nursing facility. Every other day, as long as they live or they are successfully transplanted. That is what our DaVita teammates do. So in my life, in my story, I really believe I was put on this path to be able to stand up and tell you this kind of things, share these types of experiences. And we have a core value of fun, because that work is really hard. And so when I go back through my journey, my story begins really as a basketball coach That's my nickname at DaVita. People call me Coach. You can email me, coach@davita.com, and I'll get it. And part of that experience for me was and why I reflect back and what I would share with you thinking of innovation are three things. The first is, go back to the old masters. The young students in the room, young people in the room, don't forget people that have been around the block twice. It made no sense to me as a young basketball coach to go back and hang out with guys my own age when I got this really great job a bunch of people wanted. It made sense to me to go back to talk to guys that were 60, 70, and 80 years old that had seen everything. When I spent 17 years with the Disney company in 2 different stints. I've worked on Peter Pan's Flight. I've thrown Skyway buckets. And I've worked on It's a Small World. And if anybody sings the song or even begins humming the song, it will be a problem. I trust you, okay? And one of the things about Disney that's remarkable is this guy, Walt Disney, came up with all these innovative things, but you know where he started as a storyteller, in that art of storyboarding. And when I got to work on lots of cool Walt Disney Imagineering projects, we always storyboarded and wrote a story and told a story about what it would be like to feel and experience that in advance, before design work even really began. And then I went to Duke University, where traditions are remarkable. And what I brought with myself came along just by accident from Disney, was this idea of synergy, about bringing great teams and great minds together. And so when I went to Duke, this academic powerhouse that I love dearly, when you think about academics and patient care and research, many times I found myself in the room where I was really the only person that possessed information of what other parts of the organization were doing. So I encourage all of you to create an atmosphere where you have the opportunity for people to share and make ideas and build upon ideas, like Walt Disney taught us. Here's a storyboard. What can we add underneath that that has an opportunity to make things better? So now I find myself at DaVita with this very cool title and this very cool business attire. And part of what I would share with you about DaVita is really, really this. We believe that we are a community first and a company second. And so I've been at Disney, and I've been at Duke, and I've been at DaVita. So I'm a D student. But what I can tell you, having barely passed my classes, is that when I consider my life and when I consider where I've been and what I've had the opportunity to do, when I was young, I thought I was pretty smart to talk to the old guys. Now that I'm old, I need to talk to the young guys. But when I consider what our teammates do every day, what we've tried to create is a community first and a company second. So that means we would have some core values that we believed in. Our core values and the name DaVita were selected by our teammates, not by a marketing company, not with big consultants. That name, which loosely translated in Latin means he or she gives life, was selected by our teammates. And we have the opportunity every day to thank them. Our 7th core value is fun. Because the work they do is so hard, the work we do is so hard with those patients, we think we should create the most fun atmosphere we can. So I think all of us have 2 choices to make. All of us as people wanting to be more creative, wanting to do more great things, wanting to do things differently, wanting to perhaps leave a legacy even like one for all and all for one. We really have 2 fundamental choices to make. And this is where I think the great coaches and the great people, the great leaders, this is where they sort of separate themselves from others. And I'm still working on trying to learn how to do this well. We have 2 choices to make. First choice is, we have a business. We have a system like a coach. I have an offense and I have a defense. And I have a way of going about my team. And I get people and I plug them into those offense and defensive spots. I plug them in there and we run the same things over and over. We do the same things every year and we're pretty good. We're pretty successful. The organizations that adapt, the organizations that change, the organizations that stand the test of time, and the coaches who stand the test of time, they approach it differently. They look at their team and they say, how can I put those human beings in the best place they have a chance to succeed, that they have a chance to score? So they design their offense, they design their defense around what people have the capacity and the capability to do. Because once you make that commitment, like we think like a community, once you think differently, once you make that commitment, people are more engaged, they're more energized, they're more excited, and they have an opportunity to say, well, maybe if I'm not good at this, I might be able to go over there and do that. But more importantly, when they feel good about themselves, as hard as we all have to work, as hard as you in this room all have to work, when you have that situation, that opportunity, it's amazing what people will do. Those are the two choices that we have to make, I think. Do we have something we plug people into, or do we have people that we try to find the best opportunities for them to score, for those players to have the best chance to be successful? So if we must dialyze, if we must innovate, we want to think about doing it differently. And so it's my honor to have been here this morning. I want to thank all of you for putting up with my silliness. But I need you to do one more thing for me, because the people who are asleep in the back of the room that didn't get coffee, we're going to scare the snot out of them right now. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to do one thing for me, because last and foremost, we all, wherever we work, whether it's a new company or an old company, DaVita's 9 years old. It came from ruin. It came from 2 weeks from not making payroll to the Fortune 500, but thinking like a community first. So we all have an obligation to maintain and establish traditions. We all have that obligation. So I'd like you to indulge me with one tradition. Will you do that? Will you do that? Okay, let me put all my attire on that I need to put on for this. Okay, you ready? If we must dialyze, if we must dialyze, if we must innovate, if we must learn from one another and network, if we must change the world, if we must be excited and have our teammates excited about where we work, if we must do all that, let it be like this. One for all? All for one. One for all? All for one. And one for all? All for one. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you very much.